안녕하세요 여러분! So in the comment section to my last week's video, I was actually asked a question about how to use the nende particle, and I was dreading this, to be honest. I've always tried to avoid kind of advanced and more complicated grammar topics in Korean because when I started this series, I wanted it to be for people like me back when I just started learning Korean, where I didn't have a teacher, I didn't have any structured learning, and I've been jumping from one topic to another, and I ended up in a very strange position where even now I can't specifically pinpoint where my level of Korean really is because I know some very complicated grammar points and then I may struggle with some very simple basic rules that I should have technically learned a long time ago, but I was just never exposed to them because I didn't have a structured mode of learning. Therefore, I wanted to make my videos very basic, very beginner level Korean, and kind of work our way up as the time went by. And we are almost hitting a year of weekly Korean. This is crazy. But I decided to start varying our episodes in terms of difficulty level. Some of them will be intermediate, some will be beginner, advanced, you know, just a big mess. Chaos makes me think better. I don't know why. If you do end up being confused or you feel like you're not there yet, don't worry. It is perfectly fine. This is for the people who actually wanted to know about this, and I really hope that you guys are there and you guys are watching my videos. Yay! Let's begin because I got 3 pages of notes for you guys, okay? This is going to be intense. Before we delve into what nende actually means, there are 2 ways, which are totally different, to actually use it and even write it. When we look at it, it is composed of 2 syllables, 는 and de, and you can actually use them with a space in between and without. And these are 2 completely separate ways of using it. So first, I want to just briefly talk about nende with a space in between because it's very simple, very straightforward, and I just want to get out of the way, and then we will get into the juicy complications of the nende that you write together. When you have 는 and de, the 는 usually connects to a verb or an adjective, and de is just there kind of on its own, being a noun, sort of. And in that sense, it means a place or location. And the example sentences can be 혹시 가고 싶은 데가 있어요? Do you by any chance have a place in mind that you want to go to? Wow, that was a very complicated translation. Okay, take 2. Is there any place you want to go to? There you go. You can also say something like 돈이 없어서 갈 수 있는 데가 없어요. Because I don't have money, I have no place to go or no place to stay. So that's simple, right? Now, let's move on to the nende, the one that is used together with no space in between the syllables. It is a complicated sentence connector which has a pretty straightforward purpose but doesn't have a straightforward meaning. Its purpose is to connect 2 sentences together and to make your Korean more flowy and kind of seamless and very native. But when it comes to the meaning, it actually gets very complicated because there really is none, which can be directly translated to English. If you look at the dictionary, nende can be translated as even though, but I looked at How to Study Korean website, which I absolutely love and I recommend it to anyone. It is the most amazing resource ever. How to Study Korean actually points out it's not really an even though, like there are cases where then they can serve as an even though connector, but in some cases it's just not gonna work. You won't be able to translate a certain Korean sentence that way into English. So the definition that How to Study Korean came up with, it has 2 parts to it. First, nende serves as a less stronger version of even though. At the same time, it connects to sentences in a way that the first one is kind of a precedent to the second clause. You take 2 sentences, you put them together, you have a first clause, a second clause, and then the first clause is the precedent to the second one. So it's kind of like you wouldn't have the second clause without the first one, if that made sense. I think examples make things so much better, so let's just go with those. In some cases, nende can be very similar to 지만, so let's look at that type of sentence. When in English we want to say something like, oh, I don't like meat, but I'm still going to try it, you can say it using 지만. 제가 고기를 좋아하지만 먹어볼 거예요. Even though I don't like meat, I am still going to try it, basically. But you can say the same sentence using 는데. 제가 고기를 좋아하는데 먹어볼 거예요. So what's really the difference? Well, there isn't any. It really depends on the context. And I hate myself for saying this because I hate anyone who says this to me whenever I ask a question. I don't really mean it. I don't hate anyone actually for saying that. But I really dislike when anyone says that to me because I feel like it's just so difficult to understand the context when you're a foreigner because, well, you're not a native speaker and you weren't brought up with this language and, like, I've never been to Korea. So how on earth do I figure out the context straight away without practice? Unfortunately, it is all up to the context. You can use both 지만 and 는데, and it's going to make sense. In this case, 는데 is very similar to even though, where you have a first clause and the second clause kind of contradict the first one, but then there are instances when you don't have a contradiction and it serves more as an and, or it can even be both. For example, you have two sentences. 제가 밥을 먹고 있어요. I'm eating food, or I'm eating. And the second sentence is 하지만 밥을 별로 좋아하지 않나요. But I'm not really a fan of the food, or I don't really like the food. So here we have two sentences which you can connect using 는데. 제가 밥을 먹고 있는데 별로 좋아하지 않아요. And this sentence technically to English can be translated in two ways and make perfect sense. You can say, I'm eating the food and I don't like it, but you can also say I'm eating the food even though I don't like it. Both ways make sense. And here is an example of sentences where it cannot mean even though. The two clauses of the sentence are not contradictory. They're actually complementary. You have two sentences. 저는 질문이 있어요. I have a question. 이 일을 언제까지 해야 되나요? When do I have to finish this work by? Or by when should I finish this work? Like, until when do I have to finish this work, basically? They don't really contradict each other because they just stand on their own. Have a question, and this is the question. Well, guess what? You can use 는데 to connect them. 저는 질문이 있는데 이 일을 언제까지 해야 되나요? I have a question, semicolon, until when should I finish this work? Or when should I finish this work? There's no trace of even though, even, in the sentence, right? Yet, we can still use 는데. This is a good example of how versatile 는데 is, but at the same time, how great it is of a connector and how fluent and seamless, yeah, your language really becomes when you are speaking using 는데. I'd say it sounds more natural, and you really start sounding like a native speaker. I'm going to put a lot more examples into the blog post. Yes, I did not make a mistake. I am going to put them in the blog post. I'm not going to reveal the blog post yet because I am not done with whichever medium I'm using to blogify my content here on YouTube, but it is going to be revealed next week very soon. I really hope I will be done, and if you're going to be watching this as I upload it, then look at the description box. But if you are watching this a couple of weeks after or whenever, head over to the blog post. I'm sure it's gonna be up and running, and oh my god, I'm so excited. I can't keep this a secret from you guys anymore. Yeah, basically. More examples in the blog post or the description box for now. Alright, next point is that you don't have to use 는데 just with verbs. You can also use it with adjectives, and it's quite simple. Before I give you examples, verbs like 쉽다 and 이다 behave as adjectives when it comes to connecting 는데 to them. And I'll give examples of that. First, let's have an adjective. 그 여자가 예쁜데 내 스타일이 아니야. This girl is pretty, but she's not really my style. Here we have two contradictory clauses. So 는데 here actually does serve as a even though or but, if we translate it really roughly. 런던은 되게 큰 도시인데 진짜 할 곳이 없어요. Even though London is a pretty big city, there really isn't much to do. Totally incorrect sentence in terms of meaning, because London is a great city and there's tons of things to do, but just for the sake of this exercise, using it with 싶다 goes like this. 나는 그렇게 하고 싶은데 같이 할 수 있는 사람이 없어요. I want to do it like this, but I don't have a person to do it with. Straightforward, you guys got it. You guys are at the level where I don't need to explain it too much, right? Hope so. And lastly, you can use it in a very impolite way. Not like in a bad way, but just the least polite form. You can use it at the end of the sentence. And you can use it to kind of disagree with the speaker without openly saying, no, I disagree. When someone is telling you, 빨리 가자, and you just kind of answer, 가기 싫은데. Meh. I don't really want to. Or when someone's telling their kid to eat their veggies, 야채를 먹어라. And the kid's just kind of like, 맛없는데. It's just tasteless, you know. You don't necessarily have to use it in a kind of rude way. It really depends on what context. Again, if you want to be a little bit sarcastic and be like, oh, but it doesn't have taste, or like, but I don't want to go, but we don't have time, you know. 시간이 없을 것 같은데. Don't use it with anyone that you should be speaking politely to, basically. Don't tell anyone that Margaret's teaching you how to be very impolite to whoever you should be polite with. Okay? Cool. Alright, I don't want to talk about nande anymore. There is one more way you can use nande when they're separated. Remember what I was saying at the very beginning of this episode? Don't remember? Exactly, me neither. When they serves as a location or a place, there's another way you can use it, but it's very specific, so I'll mention it in the description box or the blog post. Make sure to check that out if you're curious and just want more information. Yeah, that's about it. I'm done for today. This was very intense. My brain needs a cool down. I'm just gonna go and watch the latest episode of Running Man then. Great cool down. Alright guys, I hope you all have a wonderful upcoming weekend. I hope you're looking forward to my website / blog / a better way to learn Korean with me. Then stay tuned until next week. Oh my god, I'm so scared. But I'm really excited as well. So yeah, have a great weekend. Bye guys. 안녕.